Welcome back to the channel, folks. I appreciate you clicking on the video as always. I was just out here enjoying the late afternoon hours of a nice hot summer day here in North Carolina, and I was walking by the Valiant here, and it occurred to me that it had really been far too long since I've messed with this car. I think it's been over a year, to be honest. I don't really like to leave my cars sitting around for that long. One of the last things I did with it was made an epic burnout video with it. And then just drove it back up in the driveway, driveway, whatever you want to call it. And it's been sitting here ever since then. I already put some gas in it, just a couple of gallons, 3 or 4 maybe. It's got a little dune buggy fuel cell in the trunk because the car sat in a junkyard for a while and somebody bought the front bumper and the radiator and the gas tank and a bunch of electrical components and stuff off of it. So yeah, I put some gas in it, and I got a battery sitting here that I borrowed out of one of my vehicles. I already had to conquer a wasp in an epic battle for the driver's side door area. Get out of my car, you daggone stinging bug. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. So let's go ahead and get a battery put in this thing and see if it starts up. Hope there's no wasps under here. I didn't check first. Car has MSD ignition. It's a lot better than the factory ignition of that time period. Let's destroy everything with the battery on the way in. Really should have shut the hood. Got a lot of cleanup to do in here. I'll probably do that with a shop vac. Or at least finish it up with a shop vac. First off, let's just see if that battery connection is strong enough to turn it over. I didn't tighten them up. Not with a tool anyway, just finger tight. Nope. No connection. Oh, yep, it was the ignition switch, not the battery. I think it was. Maybe it's the battery now. We'll see. Alright, I tightened up the battery connection. It should work now. Yep. Let's pour some gas in the carburetor real quick. I'm going to try to get some into the bowl instead of just down into the throat on here, but it's dang near impossible with this tiny hole into the bowl. Alright, that's a little too much down the throat already. Alright, I'm going to pump it once to let the gas get past the throttle blades, the gas that I poured in there. Turn the MSD switch on, and pray. Not bad. Starter has always taken a really long time to slow down in this car after it gets going. Alright, maybe I can pump some gas from the carb if it got any now. It's just a single barrel, so it's hard to flood it. There we go. Ooh, fancy! The exhaust is the stock manifold and a little bit of stock pipe with a Flowmaster clamped onto it. Sounds alright for a 6-cylinder. I need to find a taillight for the thing someday. Before we clean it up, let's rev it up. Huh, 210. Maybe I should go open that radiator and see if it's got any water in it. Alright guys, it's got some water in it now. Some really nasty looking water in it. I'm gonna have to flush this thing soon. It's running a good temp now though. It was at 160 last time I saw it. Now it's at about 175. I forgot that I drained all the water out of it when it got freezing cold this winter. This is one of the cars that I prepped by getting all the water out of it instead of just putting some antifreeze in it. Back up to 200 degrees. Alrighty guys, unfortunately forgetting that I left the water in the car ate up all my time that I was going to wash the thing with today. It doesn't look like it on the camera right now, but it's just about dark. The thing gathers light pretty well, but I'm going to pick the rest of this episode up tomorrow. You guys won't notice a difference though, I'm just going to edit them together, so I'll see you tomorrow. Alrighty guys, it's the next day and I've been blessed with another nice sunny 90+ degree day here. I've got the hose out and ready. I've got an old sock turned inside out ready to clean the car up. So let's go ahead and cut down on all this grime and get the thing looking good again. And by the way, any of you guys that are worried about the car running for a couple of minutes without any coolant in it, that's really no big deal at all for this kind of motor. If you dig hard enough on the internet, you can actually find several stories about people getting in bad accidents and not being able to hold any water in their radiator and driving the car many, many miles home, speaking specifically about Slant-sixes. These old Chrysler Slant-sixes are super tough, and what's funny is over the decades they've lost the reputation that they've gained as they've grown more scarce, and they're really a super heavy-duty workhorse of an engine. A lot of people don't even know that the Slant-six came in a lot of old International Harvester tractors, so it's a, like I said, it's a really heavy-duty workhorse of an engine, and running without coolant for a couple of minutes and getting up to 210 degrees is nothing for this motor, especially just sitting with the hood open idling. There's some good fictional cinematic evidence of this in the Duel movie, where the guy drives his car overheating in the desert. I think that movie was set in the desert, if I remember correctly. But the guy drives an old Valiant with a Slant-6 in it, a lot like this, and just drives the crap out of it with the thing smoking. And the car doesn't quit, because they don't quit in real life either. You can't kill a Slant. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get to cleaning this thing up. Obviously I'm not going to make you watch it all in real time. I'm going to do a sped up cleaning segment just like I did in the video where I revived the Jimmy after sitting for a couple of years. And if you hadn't seen the video on me getting my old K5 Jimmy started after leaving it sitting for a while, you should go check that out because it's a good one, very similar to this. I'll leave a link in the description. So here we go. Alrighty guys, I'm all done cleaning it up for today, and it looks 100 times better. There's still some spots that I missed, and a few spots that I just plain wasn't scrubbing hard enough to get off, that I'll come back and get with an actual cleaning agent instead of just a sock and some water. But it's definitely clean enough for a car that spends a majority of its time off-road. It's just going to get dirty again soon, but it looks good now. I cleaned up most of that tree debris that was under the hood. Didn't get it all out of here. Didn't do a very thorough job at all, but just dejunked it mainly. I'll come back and do a more thorough cleanup later because the engine is actually painted up and detailed pretty nice in Hemi orange and wrinkle finish black and high temperature silver. And any of you Slant-six guys that are watching, you definitely want to paint your intake and exhaust with some ceramic high temperature exhaust paint, because that'll help insulate the intake from the heat of the exhaust and keep the exhaust from radiating so much of its heat out to the intake. Definitely give you a little bit more power. I mainly did that a long time ago. I know it looks dirty now, but I mainly did it a long time ago to improve the underhood looks of the car, but I was really shocked and just could not believe how much better the car ran after painting the intake and exhaust with that high temp ceramic paint. Almost called it silicone. The car also has a Rochester monojet single barrel carburetor, which is a carburetor that came on the Chevy 250 inline 6. I think it only came on there for a couple of years, maybe just one to be honest, but it's a 250 CFM carburetor if I remember correctly. Yep, it's a 250 CFM carburetor, and it's more than 100 CFM bigger than the largest single barrel carburetor that came on a Slant-6. And a lot of guys like to change over to the 2-barrel intake from the Super Slant-6. But one way to get a lot more power out of your stock intake that pretty much almost nobody knows about, I think I'm the only person with one of these setups, is to bolt a Rochester monojet on. It's the same bolt pattern as the original carburetor. It's just 2 bolts, and you hook the throttle linkage and the fuel line and the vacuum advance line up to it, and it's a super easy swap. It's literally just, 2 bolts, linkage, and a couple of hoses, and the thing, it's like an instant extra 100 CFM. I put this carburetor on here out of necessity. I found it on a old 67 or 68 C10, can't remember exactly, but I threw this carb on here out of necessity and then ended up finding out later that it was 100 CFM bigger than any stock single barrel you could get on a Slant-6. And as you guys could see, throttle response is just fine with the 100 extra CFM, and I may be getting away with this just because I have a manual transmission. I don't know if guys with automatics would be able to run this large of a carburetor. They definitely would be able to if they had a little bit of a converter and some good gear. I know what's cool about the Slant-6 904 is you can actually run any V8 torque converter that you want. One of the really amazing things about this car is that this is the original paint, and the stuff has held up really well, and I mean really well, like unbelievably well, for a vehicle that has never been garage kept. I don't think the original owner garage kept this car anyway. I mean, I can't say for 100% sure, but my friend's mom was actually the second owner of this car, and they definitely did not keep this thing in the garage. They drove the hell out of it until it started getting some both rusty floorboard issues and electrical issues, and Mom just decided to get a new car instead of fixing the old Slant-6, and my friend that I'm talking about, whose mother this car belonged to, runs a small vintage car junkyard of sorts, where he keeps a bunch of oddball stuff for people to pick through. And he put this car away in his junkyard for people to buy Slant-6 and A-body parts off of, and I ended up coming back to buy it later. Man, that grill looks really ugly now that it's dry. I'm going to have to come back and clean that thing with a brush. So yeah, I think I already mentioned at the beginning of the video that I bought this thing for 300 bucks out of a junkyard, and that's where it came from. So I'm actually the third owner of this car, which is pretty cool. It's neat to know a lot of the vehicle's history. Almost forgot I was giving you a little walk around of the original paint. Unfortunately, somebody cut into the trunk while the thing was in the junkyard. That sucks. This is some of the only body damage on the car that really concerns me. I'm going to get a buddy of mine that's a long time, like 30 or 40 year bodywork expert to help me bang that thing out. The headliner's in crap shape anyway. This is a gas cap from another car. Somebody took the gas cap that was originally on the car, and I just jammed it onto the original filler neck so that there wouldn't be a gaping hole in the side of the car. Mopar must have been using some super high quality paint back 40 years ago, because man, that stuff lasted unbelievably well for being outside. Now forgive me, but I had to elaborate a little bit just in case some of you guys were suspicious with why this car has one really bad spot on its paint. What is going on here is I experimented a little bit with some rattle can clear on the car, and basically did the package tray and the tops of the rear quarters and the trunk with some rattle can clear. And I wish that I hadn't done it because it's holding up really well in most spots, but this spot in particular and right here, it started to come off. And the reason it actually came off here is because I left the back glass for my 78 Cutlass project sitting on the car. It was hot as could be, definitely over 100 degrees, and I could see there was like this magnifying glass superheating effect going on right here. And putting the curved back glass of that old Cutlass on the back end of this car for just a day. It was only in the sun for a couple hours, but it was there long enough to cook the clear coat right off and make this ugly spot. So yeah, I've been talking about this ugly spot for 1 minute and 20 seconds now. I think it's got enough of our attention, don't you? The moral of the story, no cheap-ass modern clear coat, rattle can or not, is going to last as long as the good old paint that they put on these cars from the factory. Alright guys, I actually wanted to drive the car a little bit today, maybe get a little bit of action in for you, but I guess we'll just have to settle for some old clips. Meantime, I did a favor from both myself and the car that I'm sure everybody's going to love, you, me, and the vehicle. And I finally decided to dedicate this car cover specifically to the car. This is a nice old Budge car cover that a customer gave to me. And it's going to keep the car from getting sun damaged like it is. And in case you guys hadn't noticed, like if you look close, it's actually really obvious here. The sun is hurting the original paint in some spots, and you know, the spots that are catching the sun really hard. Obviously you can just buff that out, you know, and get it to back to the same hue as the rest of the paint on the car, but it's getting a little bit thin already in some spots, and you can only buff a car so many times before you've gone through. So we need to start protecting it, and this is the first step towards protecting it. Those of you guys that know me better actually know that I've got a plan to buy a bunch of shipping containers and set up like little bunkers for some of my more important cars like this that have original paint on them. So let's go ahead and get this classic all wrapped up in its blanket. And no, I'm not exaggerating. I know that four-door cars definitely were not the hot thing a few years ago, but this car is a nice old classic now in my opinion, even though it's a four-door Slant-six. Come on, you gonna make me go get a tool for this? And there you have it. A decent car cover for a decent classic old car. Finally got it out of the shade and mostly out of the weather. Anyhow, the car is covered up. The cover's seen better days. There's a couple little holes in it, but none on top, which is great. It's gonna, for the most part, keep the water off the car. I know not in real bad rain it won't, but it's definitely going to keep the dirt and the sun off of it. And the dash pad's actually uncracked and original in the car too, so that's one thing that needs protecting for sure. Thanks a lot for watching the video, guys. I really appreciate it as always. Take it easy.